Welcome back to Behind the Caution Tape. I'm your host, CrashLit. A lot happened last week in USC athletics, a lot coming up this week. Let's get into all of it, but before we do, be sure to follow me on social media at CrashLit. That's where you'll see everything that I'm posting and everything I'm up to and where I'll be at. Be sure to also subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen, Apple, Spotify, Amazon. We should be everywhere. If we're not, please message me and I'll try to get that resolved. You can also watch the video version of this show on my YouTube channel. So subscribe to me there at CrashLit to be able to catch up with all my content there as well. And then I also do want to highlight the fact that I am on a couple other shows every week. I'm on the Voice of USC at the Voice of College Football on Sundays and Tuesdays. And I'm also doing a show with Scott Schrader for We Are SC every Wednesday. So be sure to catch me there. And I hope to see you there. Engage there and talk more, especially about USC football since those focus there. But let's get into everything going on here. Before we do also want to shout out that I have partnered with Brand Newport. Love repping them, especially because they represent my hometown of Newport Beach. And I do have a promo, so go to newport.co/crashlit and then apply the promo code Newport, spelled like this, 50 at checkout and get 10% off. To rep this amazing brand. You can get SC colors like this, so I think it's really cool. You can rep this really cool brand in those colors. So let's get into everything going on. And before we get into football, I do want to talk a bit about the Big Ten private capital proposal that Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti has been pushing hard. It was about $2.4 billion in exchange for 10% of what would be called Big Ten Enterprise, which would handle all the Big Ten's assets and be owned by 20 different entities, the 18 schools, the Big Ten office, and the UC pension fund. However, USC and Michigan jointly locked arms and shut it down since it required unanimous approval. According to reports, Tony Petitti was very upset. I think one even said furious. So he's trying to see if he can find a way to get this pushed. So we'll see what happens, but definitely interesting to see USC and Michigan, where they're very different in a lot of ways, especially Michigan being public, USC being private, locking arms to shut this down, especially when some of the other big brands like Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon were all reportedly on board. So just wanted to give an update on that, and we'll see what happens there. I'll monitor any future developments, any big news. I'll bring to you right here on Behind the Caution Tape. So let's jump into football now. As football team, despite being off, jumped back into the AP poll at number 23 after four teams who were ranked in front of them all had substantial losses that pushed them out. South Florida, LSU, Illinois, and Arizona State, with LSU even firing their head coach, Brian Kelly, Sunday night. So just definitely, just the fact that USC was off was just interesting how it was able to propel them back into the top 25, which then helps them, just puts them in a better spot. But now, so they sit at 5-2 overall, 3-1 on the year. And up next, they head to Lincoln, Nebraska for a matchup with the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Cornhuskers are 6-2 on the year, 6-2 overall, 3-2 in Big Ten play. That'll be on Saturday at 4:30. You can watch on NBC. And this game, in many ways, is going to feel like basically a CFP elimination game, because pretty much if you have more than 2 losses, it's unless you make the Big Ten championship, which then narrows substantially for USC. It's going to be pretty hard. From what I've been seeing, it seems pretty hard to get in as a 3-loss at-large team. So for USC and Nebraska, this is a crucial matchup. Huskers can't afford a loss either and they beat Northwestern 28-21, and definitely after getting up the head, but then letting the Wildcats back in. So USC needs to just come ready to play, and just hopefully they just can get some more people healthy, and just, their defense is just really going to be a big concern. Sure, Jade Maia didn't have his best game, maybe his worst game of the season, but I still thought that for the most part he played hard. Obviously, some things that need to be corrected on the offense, but definitely the defensive line needs to figure out how to stop guys. Obviously, Jeremiah Love, is a very talented running back. There's no denying that, but still, just the fact that USC couldn't stop him did show trouble. And no doubt in my mind that Matt Rule and Nebraska are using that film to try to figure out, all right, how do we exploit their D line? So that's what's coming up there. And looking forward to seeing that one come up and just see USC, keep fighting and giving themselves a shot to remain in this CFP and Big Ten race. So men's basketball got a 67-61 win in their second exhibition game of the year against Grand Canyon on Saturday night. I watched this one on TV, but was possibly thinking about driving out, just ended up not working out. So it was Saturday night. And it was from, I was texting a couple of people who were there, and they said it was a really just hostile environment. Just like, and that sounded like what Eric Musselman wanted. He wanted to have his team get some exhibition games on the road so he'd know what those challenging environments are like. And obviously, I've heard nothing but great things about just how into basketball they are at Grand Canyon. I mean, I was working with a group a couple of years ago that was trying to, help USC with that stuff out. So it was really interesting to see how they built that up. And obviously, it reminds me a lot of Viejas Arena, home of San Diego State, because my dad went to San Diego State, so I grew up going to their games and just seeing how they just could get people to show up every night. So those are two really hostile environments, and it was really impressive to see USC get the win. Chad Baker Mazara leading with 15 points, Jerry Easter's second leading with 11 rebounds, and then Jacob Kofi and Jordan Marsh each having 3 assists. But in that game, USC started out strong, but then let GCU back in the game. They just raced off at the start of each half really strong, but then the Lopes pulled their way back in. So USC definitely does need to focus on their defense from what I was seeing. But hopefully they can just, keep trying to, keep battling and just figure out how to just, start out strong, especially where they have a pretty easy game to start the year. They'll host Cal Poly in their season opener. Mustangs won their lone exhibition where they beat Cal State East Bay 97-86 on Friday. So consider it. So not too worried about this game, but still definitely one that USC needs to, come in ready to play for sure. Game will be on a week from today, so November 3rd at 6:30 p.m. on Big Ten Plus. So USC needs to start strong and just really just make a statement with this win to get fans excited to show up to Galen Center this year. So let's move now to women's volleyball, who went 2-0 on the week, and a big congratulations to head coach Brad Keller for achieving his 100th career win at USC yesterday as head coach. So we'll start with the Maryland game, which was win 99 for Keller. They got a 3-0 sweep over the Terrapins, 25-12, 25-14, 25-18. That was Thursday night. London Weejay leading with 10 kills. Weejay and Taylor Deckert having 1 ace each. Riley McGinnis and Mia Taverdi leading with 4 blocks each. Reese Messer had 35 assists, and Deckert had 9 digs, which is a career high. Had 9 digs, not a career high. That was last week. She had her career high, so my bad. So she just had 9 digs. And then it was just a beatdown from start to finish, as USC was just never really in trouble for any of the match, and was just really just outmatched the Terrapins. But then they got a 3-1 win over Washington on Sunday, 25-20, 27-25, 21-25, 25-15. Weejay again leading the way with 18 kills. Abigail Mullen having 4 aces. Mia Taverdi leading with 4 blocks. Messer dishing out 48 assists. And Messer also leading the way with 16 digs. It was a very evenly matched battle between both the Trojans and the Huskies. And USC could, despite winning the first 2, USC also could have won the third. And they were right there until the end when the Huskies were just kind of had a bit more momentum going into it. But it was really impressed with how USC just came out angry in the fourth set and just kind of walloped the Huskies to give Brad Keller his 100th career win. So it was really exciting to see him get that. And he moves now all-time to 162 record since taking over USC in 2020. It's been really impressive to see just how he's built this program up and how I think this could be the year they take the next step. They're looking strong. They've won 4 in a row. They haven't lost. And I think they have some good opportunities to really keep the momentum going. One final thing before I get to previewing their upcoming matches. They did have a post-match autograph session yesterday as well. So I got my caution tape signed. It's one back here for those of you watching. So shout out to the team for that. Thanks for staying and signing my caution tape. It's always fun to, talk with y'all and, interact and, get it signed and then, put it on the studio wall. So, adds to my backdrop here for behind the caution tape and for all my other shows I do here in the studio. So, so USC now sits at 15 and 5 overall, 6 and 4 in Big Ten play, and they're likely to move up from number 22 in the rankings. So up next, they will host UCLA on Wednesday night. That'll be at 7 p.m. on Big Ten Network. The Bruins are 12 and 8 overall, 6 and 4 in Big Ten play. For traveling to Minnesota, who's 16 and 5 overall, 6 and 4 on Saturday. That'll be at 6 p.m. Pacific time on Big Ten Plus. So USC did get swept by UCLA on October 11th, but just from how USC has played since they lost to the Bruins, and I mean they beat Wisconsin a few weeks ago, last week. They are just looking like a much better team than they did a few weeks ago. And then USC did also beat Minnesota last year. Granted, that was at home. But I think this is going to be one USC's fired up. They know that they've proven they can play with the big dogs. They've beaten Creighton. They've beaten Wisconsin. They know how to beat the big dogs. It's just also, playing steady. And then obviously, this game also struck me because I went back to my interview with Brad Keller from the summer Big Ten volleyball meet days, and he said he's personally really excited to visit Minnesota, especially because he's never been there before. So I'm really interested to see how their home environment is, and especially some of those Big Ten schools are really into their volleyball. So it's really exciting to see just how into it the fans are. And a lot of these fan bases have traveled well. So it's really exciting to just see just the passion for volleyball in the Big Ten, especially as the sport continues to grow. So we'll move on to soccer now. So the team finishes the regular season with a 7-6-3 record, 4-5-2 in Big Ten. And that comes after a scoreless draw to UCLA yesterday afternoon. Bellegrest having 7 saves in goal, and USC did have chances to score, but just could not get any of their shots to go into the net. So fortunately, though, despite drawing, enough went right for USC to claim the 10th and final spot in the Big Ten tournament. So up next for USC, they head to the Big Ten tournament, which will be in West Lafayette, hosted by Purdue, where they will face 7th-seeded Northwestern. So USC, this season definitely hasn't gone the way they've hoped, but they still have an opportunity to turn around. Northwestern will be an interesting one too. Wildcats are 8-3-7 overall, 4-2-5 in Big Ten play. That'll be at 4:30 on Thursday on Big Ten Plus. And it's also sophomore Tana Schornstein's former school, so that'll be interesting to see how it'll go for her in playing against her former teammates at Northwestern. So interested to see how that goes. And then with a win, USC will face second-seeded Michigan State, who is 10-3-5 on the year, 7-1-3. USC did lose 4-0 to the Spartans earlier this year in East Lansing. And if that does happen, USC will face them on November 2nd at 3:30 p.m. on Big Ten Plus, also in West Lafayette. So USC likely needs to win the tournament or to make the NCAA tournament to keep the season alive after just this campaign. Started out strong with the team at number 5, but then have seen the Trojans just tumble out of the rankings as the season progressed and just shown that just it was definitely tough, especially like I've said, like this team lost a lot of leadership, a lot of consistent players who were there for almost all 4 years, plus a few additional players who were there just for 1 year, either for their final year or for their grad year. So USC really needs to find a way to, has one opportunity to turn the season around and try to keep their season alive. Move to men's water polo, who, despite being off and only had their alumni game, from which no scores or stats were reported, they moved up to number 1 last week after beating UCLA, and they're likely to hold on to that as they were off and have a 15-2 overall record and 2-1 in MPSF play. So up next for the Trojans, they'll host Cal on Saturday at 1 p.m. and Stanford on Sunday also at 1 p.m. Both games you can watch at overnight.com. Bears are 14-3 overall, 1-2 in conference play. Cardinal are 12 and 4 overall, 1 and 2 in conference play. So if USC can win both these games this weekend, they'll be in a solid position to win the MPSF, which is UCLA left on the schedule. So now we'll move to men's golf, who finished third of the 14 schools competing in the GC of Georgia Intercollegiate in Alpharetta. So, so that was definitely another big event for USC, especially they've really started out strong. They finished collectively 7 under par, 857 total score. Then the individual scores were tied 14th was Antonio Safa, going 2 under par. And tied 18th was Jane Demdamava, going 1 under par. Tied 27th was Nicholas Dominguez, going 1 over par, as did Luke Stock. And then in 40th was Jack Buchanan, going 5 over par. So that was the final fall tournament for the men's golf team. Their spring action will resume. They resume action in the spring for their spring season on January 19th and 20th with the Copper Cup hosted by Arizona State and Laguna Niguel. So I'll talk more about that in the new year. Women's golf has their final fall tournament when they take part in the East Lake Cup starting today and running through Wednesday. They'll be at the East Lake Golf Club in Atlanta, so I'll talk more about the results next week. And a big congratulations to Bailey Shoemaker for winning the Tom Cousins Awards, which is given to one male and one female student athlete who best exemplify civic, community, and philanthropic qualities of the founder of the East Lake Foundation, Tom Cousins. So congrats to Shoemaker for that award. Men's tennis took part in the ITA Southwest Regional Championships in Tempe that ran from October 16th through the 21st. And then the highlight result was Jack McCarthy going all the way to the regional championships in the singles champ it was Jack McCarthy reaching the singles round of 16. And then up next they take part in the Hagedorn Hidden Duel hosted by University of San Diego that'll run from October 31st to November 2nd. So I'll bring highlights and results from that next week. Women's tennis also took part in the ITA Southwest Regional Championships in San Diego from October 16th through 21st. And duo of Lily Fairclough and Danny Burrell took the doubles title on the 21st, and with it, they earned a spot in the NCAA doubles championship in Orlando next month. And then Jenna Hossam also earned a spot in the NCAA individual championships for singles, by reaching the championship final in singles. So congrats to all 3 of them. So up next is the JKC Dennis Riza Classic in Rolling Hills. That'll run from October 31st to November 2nd. So I'll bring results and highlights from that next week. So we move on to cross country, who finished second overall at moved to cross country, who finished second overall at the John Elders Titan Invite, hosted by Cal State Fullerton. So in second overall was Sydney Nodell with a time of 21:36.1. Third place was Jacqueline Duarte, 21:53.4. 10th was Haley Spoden, 22:39.5. 17th was Isabella Duarte, 23:09.2. And 31st was Lucia Ribali, 24:46.6. So best showing since Brenda Martinez took over, new coach Brenda Martinez took over this fall. So up next for the team is the Big Ten Championships those will take place in East Lansing. They start on Friday, pardon me. And you can watch them on the Big Ten Network. Starts at 8:35 a.m. Pacific time as the team looks to keep their season alive and try to make a spot in the NCAA West Regional and eventually NCAA Championships this year. So best of luck to cross country. So rowing had their first meet, which is the Head of American at Lake Natoma in Gold River. That was on Saturday. Kicked off their season. and they won the varsity 8 with a time of 17:29.0 and the first varsity 4 with a time of 20:17.2. So up next for them will be a scrimmage against UC San Diego on February 22nd at the Port of LA. So talk more about that when it comes up in the new year. So lacrosse had their Cardinal and Gold intra-squad scrimmage on Saturday, but no results or stats were reported. So up next, that concludes their fall ball season, and I'll give you more news when their schedule drops. Hopefully soon. Excited to see where their schedule takes them this year. So beach volleyball, our final sport we'll cover today, took part in the 12th annual Surf City Collegiate Challenge in Huntington Beach. That was on Saturday and Sunday. And the highlight result of that was Kennedy Coakley and Alana Embry earning a third place finish, so getting the bronze medal there. So congrats to both of them. So up next for the team will be the AVCA Pairs Tournament in Huntsville, Alabama. That'll be from November 7th through the 9th. So I'll talk more about that. So I'll give a preview on that. So I'll see what I can find out, then hopefully bring some results in the next couple weeks. So last week I went 2-0. It was just both women's volleyball matches. So I'm now 10-3 at women's volleyball this year. And I am so this year I'm now 17-5-1 on the year. 328, 124, and 1 all time. And so my plans for this week are for sure the UCLA women's volleyball match. And then we'll see what else I can pull off. Just obviously, like I said, it's just kind of tricky now. I'm out of school and just having to figure everything out, but I'll try to be at what I can. So that's going to do it for us here on Behind the Caution Tape. If you ever want to get your voice heard on this podcast, be sure to reach out to me. I do put out question boxes normally every Sunday on both my Instagram and my X pages. So follow me there at CrashLit. Be sure to also follow the podcast on whatever streaming platform you listen, or watch the video version on my YouTube at CrashLit. You see anything, feel free to come up and let's have a conversation, chat USC sports. So that's going to do it for us here on Behind the Caution Tape. Thanks again to everybody. I'll see you all next week, and fight on.